My name is Phyllis Anderson, 57 years old, from Boston. When my daughter Megan announced her engagement to Aaron, she was over the moon with excitement. After all the years of raising her alone, this was a moment I had dreamed about sharing with her. I spent days wondering about the engagement dinner, waiting for her to tell me the details. Then yesterday I called and asked, "What time should I arrive for the engagement dinner?" Her casual response froze my heart. "Oh, we had it yesterday. Just close family. Just close family." If you have ever felt the sting of being excluded by someone you love with your whole heart, drop a comment below and hit subscribe. This journey taught me something I never expected. I raised Megan by myself after her father walked out when she was 8 years old. Tom decided family life was too restrictive for his musical ambitions and left us with little more than a hastily written note and a mountain of debt. In those early days, I would lie awake at night, terrified about how I would provide for my little girl, how I would give her the life she deserved. I took on 2 jobs: administrative assistant at a law firm during the day and waitressing 3 nights a week at Luigi's Italian restaurant. The tips from Luigi's helped pay for Megan's dance lessons, the braces she needed in 6th grade, and eventually her SAT prep courses. I still remember the bone-deep exhaustion, falling asleep sometimes while helping her with homework, but I never complained. Megan was worth every sacrifice. When Megan was accepted to Northeastern University with a partial scholarship, I felt such overwhelming pride. She was the first in our family to attend college. I had managed to save enough for her first year of tuition, but the remaining years meant taking out loans that I am still paying off. I put my own dreams on hold. The small bookstore I had always wanted to open, trips I longed to take, even dating. Everything was secondary to giving Megan opportunities I never had. Throughout her childhood and teenage years, Megan and I were incredibly close. We had our Sunday traditions: blueberry pancakes for breakfast, followed by afternoon movies or walks along the harbour. She would tell me everything: her crushes, her friendship dramas, her dreams of becoming an architect. I was not just her mother, but her confidant and best friend. At least that is what I thought. The first real distance between us appeared during her junior year of college, when she met Aaron Mills. He was studying finance, came from a wealthy family in Connecticut, and had the kind of polished confidence that only comes from privilege. When Megan first brought him home, he was unfailingly polite, complimenting my modest apartment, praising the lasagna I had spent all day preparing. But there was something reserved in his manner. A slight hesitation before sitting on my second-hand couch, the way his eyes scanned my simple decor. I sensed he was judging our life and finding it lacking. Still, I made every effort to connect with Aaron. I asked about his family, his studies, his career plans. I invited him to our traditional Sunday brunches and tried to include him in conversations about Megan's childhood. He was always cordial but maintained a certain distance that I could never quite bridge. Meeting Aaron's parents was even more intimidating. Judith and Richard Mills lived in a sprawling colonial home in Greenwich, with perfectly manicured gardens and a view of the Long Island Sound. Their casual references to their summer home in Martha's Vineyard and winter skiing trips to Aspen made me acutely aware of the vast gulf between our worlds. I wore my best outfit, a navy blue dress from Macy's that I had purchased on sale, but still felt woefully underdressed next to Judith's designer clothing and tasteful diamond jewellery. Despite these differences, I was genuinely happy when Megan called to announce their engagement. She sounded so excited, her voice bubbling with joy, as she described how Aaron had proposed during a weekend trip to Newport. I immediately offered to help with wedding plans and mentioned hosting an engagement dinner, something simple but special to celebrate their commitment. "That is sweet, Mum," Megan had said, "but Aaron's parents are handling most of the arrangements. They have connections with all the best vendors in Connecticut." I swallowed my disappointment and assured her I understood. "Just let me know what I can do to help, sweetie. This is such an exciting time." "Of course, Mum," she replied, but something in her tone suggested my role would be minimal at best. Still, nothing prepared me for the painful revelation that would come just weeks later, the discovery that in my daughter's new life I had somehow become an outsider looking in. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs earlier. The subtle shifts in Megan's behaviour toward me began long before the engagement dinner incident. Our once weekly phone calls dwindled to brief conversations every 2 weeks, sometimes less. She became vague about her plans, cancelling our traditional Sunday brunches, with last-minute texts claiming work deadlines or previous commitments with Aaron's friends. When we did speak, Megan shared less and less about her personal life. Our heart-to-heart talks about everything from relationship advice to career decisions had been replaced by superficial updates and polite inquiries about my health. I told myself she was just busy building her own life as a young professional. Isn't that what I had raised her to do? To be independent and successful, but a small voice inside me whispered that something more troubling was happening. 6 months into her relationship with Aaron, Megan invited me to dinner at an upscale restaurant in Boston to meet his parents properly. I spent weeks anxious about the meeting, buying a new outfit and getting my hair professionally styled for the occasion. I wanted to make a good impression to show that I had raised my daughter with proper values, despite our modest means. Judith Mills arrived in a cashmere sweater, set, accessorized with pearls that looked antique and valuable. Her husband, Richard, wore a sports coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. They were cordial, asking polite questions about my job and complimenting Megan on her accomplishments, but there was an underlying current of assessment in their interactions with me. "Phyllis Megan tells us you work at a law firm," Judith said, stirring her martini with a manicured finger. "Yes, I have been an administrative assistant at Davidson and Associates for 15 years now," I replied, trying to sound proud of my steady employment. "How nice," she murmured, with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Richard's sister did some secretarial work before she married. Such a respectable position." The subtle condescension in her tone made my cheeks burn. Throughout the dinner, I noticed how Megan deferred to Judith's opinions on everything from wine selections to vacation destinations. My daughter, who had once been fiercely independent in her views, now seemed eager to align herself with the Mills family perspective on every topic. I also began to notice changes in Megan herself. The way she spoke, her mannerisms, even her style of dress had shifted to mirror Judith's refined New England aesthetic. Her natural laugh had been replaced by a softer, more controlled chuckle. She used phrases I had never heard from her before, referring to shopping as making purchases and dinner as evening meals. It was as if she were practicing for a role in a world where I had no part. After that dinner, I overheard a conversation between Megan and Aaron as they were gathering their coats to leave my apartment after a brief Sunday visit. "Your mum's place is cozy," Aaron said, his tone making the word sound like a criticism rather than a compliment. "I know it's not what you're used to," Megan replied in a whisper that broke my heart. But she did her best, as if my life's work, the home I had made for us through years of struggle and sacrifice, was something to apologize for. I pretended not to hear, busying myself in the kitchen until they called out their goodbyes, but the comments stayed with me, a splinter beneath my skin that throbbed with every interaction afterward. Despite these painful realizations, I continued trying to maintain our connection. I sent thoughtful text messages, mailed cards for no special occasion, and suggested activities we might enjoy together. Most of my efforts were met with delayed responses or rain checks that were never cashed. When Megan finally called to announce that Aaron had proposed, I pushed aside my hurt feelings and expressed genuine happiness for her. She talked excitedly about the princess-cut diamond engagement ring, describing its clarity and size in detail, but was noticeably vague about celebration plans. "Aaron's parents might host something," she said dismissively when I asked. They have this whole vision for how everything should go. Will I be included in the planning? I asked, trying to keep the neediness from my voice. I'd love to help however I can. Of course, Mum, she assured me, but without specifics. Everyone will be involved. I'll let you know when things are more settled. Those words, I'll let you know, would come to symbolize my new place in my daughter's life. Always waiting for information, for inclusion, for the chance to be part of her joy. The day I discovered I had been excluded from Megan's engagement dinner began like any other Tuesday. I was organising depositions at work when I remembered Megan mentioning that Aaron's parents were planning some kind of celebration dinner. She had been frustratingly vague about the details, and after a week of waiting for an invitation, I decided to call her during my lunch break. My heart was light as I dialed her number, looking forward to hearing her voice and getting the information I needed to prepare for the special occasion. I imagined helping her choose an outfit, perhaps going shopping together like we used to when she was younger. Megan answered on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. Hey, Mum, can I call you back? I'm just heading into a client meeting. This will only take a second, sweetie, I assured her, twisting the phone cord around my finger nervously. I just wanted to know what time the engagement dinner is starting. I wasn't sure if I should come directly from work or go home to change first. There was a pause just long enough for my stomach to tighten with apprehension. Then Megan's voice, casual and light, as if discussing the weather. Oh, we had it yesterday. Just close family. The words hit me like a physical blow. Just close family. My hand gripped the receiver so tightly, my knuckles turned white, and a strange buzzing filled my ears. I was her mother, her only parent. If I wasn't close family, then who was I? I didn't realize, I managed to say, my voice sounding strange and distant to my own ears. I thought you would have mentioned it. It was really last minute, Megan replied, her tone dismissive. Aaron's parents arranged everything at their country club. It was nothing special, just dinner and champagne toasts. Nothing special, except it was. It was the celebration of my only child's engagement, a milestone I had always assumed I would be part of. My throat constricted as I tried to form a response that wouldn't reveal how deeply her exclusion had wounded me. Well, I hope it was lovely, I said, finally, struggling to keep my voice steady. Perhaps we could have our own little celebration soon, just the three of us. Sure, Mum, Megan said, sounding distracted again. Look, I really have to go. This meeting is important. I'll call you later. Okay. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me sitting at my desk with the phone still pressed to my ear and tears threatening to spill over. The office bustled around me, colleagues chatting by the water cooler phones, ringing the copy machine humming, but I felt suddenly isolated, as if encased in glass. I somehow made it through the remaining hours of my workday on autopilot filing papers and answering emails without registering what I was doing. It wasn't until I was safely inside my apartment door locked behind me that I allowed the full weight of the exclusion to wash over me. I sank onto my couch, the same couch where I had held Megan through childhood fevers and teenage heartbreaks, where we had watched countless movies together, sharing popcorn and dreams, and finally let the tears come. They streamed down my face as memories flashed through my mind. Megan's 6th birthday, when I had worked overtime for weeks to afford the princess party she wanted. The night she won the school science fair and jumped into my arms with excitement. Her high school graduation, when she had hugged me tightly and whispered, "We did it, Mum." That had always been our story. We against the world, mother and daughter, a team forged through hardship and strengthened by love. When had we become us and them? When had I shifted from being essential to being an afterthought? The phrase, just close family, echoed in my mind, each repetition a fresh wound. In Megan's new reality, her future in-laws, people she had known for less than 3 years, were her close family, while I, who had devoted my entire adult life to her well-being, was something else, something less. I reached for my phone several times that evening, composing angry texts, demanding an explanation, typing tearful pleas for understanding, drafting dignified expressions of my hurt. I deleted them all unsent. My relationship with my daughter felt suddenly fragile, and I was afraid that expressing my true feelings might shatter what little connection remained between us. Instead, I called in sick to work the next day, something I rarely did, and spent the morning looking through old photo albums trying to understand when and how everything had changed. There was Megan on her first day of kindergarten, gap-toothed and brave in her new backpack. Megan at 12, gangly and serious at her first piano recital. Megan at 18, radiant in her graduation cap and gown arm slung around my shoulders. In every photo, her eyes held the same trust and love when she looked at me, until the more recent pictures, where something had shifted. A new guardedness in her expression, a slight physical distance between us in posed shots. The evidence of our growing separation was there in the images, a slow drift I had sensed but been unwilling to fully acknowledge. That evening, I finally broke down and called my best friend Diana, the words tumbling out between sobs as I recounted the conversation with Megan and the devastating realization that I had been deliberately excluded from such an important event. "Oh, Phyllis," Diana said, her voice warm with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. That must have hurt terribly." "I just don't understand," I whispered, clutching a tissue. "When did I become someone she doesn't want to include in the important moments of her life?" Diana was silent for a moment before asking gently, "Have you told her how you feel?" I hadn't. And as the days passed, I realized I would need to find the courage to do exactly that, to confront the painful truth that my relationship with my daughter had fundamentally changed and to ask her why. The week after discovering I had been excluded from the engagement dinner was one of the darkest periods of my life. I moved through my days like a sleepwalker, going through the motions of living while feeling hollowed out inside. I called in sick to work for 2 days, something I had rarely done even when truly ill, and avoided answering calls from friends who would inevitably ask about wedding plans and my excitement as mother of the bride. In the privacy of my apartment, I cycled through a kaleidoscope of emotions, disbelief that my only child could so casually exclude me from a significant celebration, sadness that cut deeper than I thought possible, flashes of anger that left me pacing my small living room, rehearsing confrontations I knew I would never have, and most devastatingly profound self-doubt about my value as a mother and a person. I found myself obsessively reviewing my relationship with Megan, searching for the moment when things had changed. Had I been too strict during her teenage years, too lenient? Had my focus on providing financially come at the cost of emotional connection? Was I somehow lacking in the qualities that would make her proud to include me in her new life? Diana came over on Friday evening with a bottle of wine and a steady shoulder to cry on. We sat at my kitchen table as I poured out my confusion and pain. "I gave her everything I could," I said, twisting a napkin between my fingers. "I worked so hard to make sure she never felt the sting of our financial limitations. Christmas always had presents under the tree. She went to soccer camp every summer. I helped her with college applications night after night." Diana reached across the table and stilled my restless hands with her own. "Phyllis, you were an amazing mother. You still are. This isn't about what you did or didn't do." "Then why?" I asked the question that had been haunting me for days. "Why would she cut me out like this?" Diana sighed, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes when young people are trying to move up in the world, they make poor choices about who and what they value. Aaron's family represents something Megan thinks she wants. Status connections, a certain lifestyle. She's getting caught up in it and losing sight of what really matters." "But she's always been so grounded," I protested. "We talked about the emptiness of materialism, about judging people by their character rather than their bank accounts." Talking about values when they're theoretical is different from living them when you're faced with real choices, Diana pointed out. And Megan is being influenced by Aaron and his family. It doesn't excuse her behavior, but it might explain it. The following day, I found myself pulling out boxes of Megan's childhood mementos from my closet, her carefully preserved artwork from elementary school, stick figure families where she and I held hands under smiling suns, Mother's Day cards with wobbly handwriting professing I was the best mommy in the whole wide world, the journal she kept in middle school that she had given me permission to read, filled with the dramas and dreams of early adolescence where I frequently appeared as her hero and confidant. As I turned the pages of her life, tears streamed down my face. This child who had loved me so openly, who had once believed I hung the moon and stars, how had she become the young woman who could so casually inflict such deep hurt? The memory book from her high school graduation contained a letter she had written to me. Mum, everything I am is because of you. Your strength showed me how to be strong. Your kindness taught me to be kind. Your endless love gave me the confidence to reach for my dreams. I hope I make you proud every day because I am so proud to be your daughter. Reading those words now felt like encountering a ghost, the echo of a relationship that no longer existed in the same form. What had happened to that grateful, loving girl? Was she still there somewhere beneath the surface of the polished young professional who now seemed embarrassed by her roots? By Sunday evening, I had moved through enough of my grief to reach a place of determination. I couldn't continue in this limbo of hurt and confusion. I needed to address the situation directly with Megan, to understand what had happened and to let her know how deeply her actions had affected me. Not to make her feel guilty, but to advocate for myself and the relationship I still believed we could have. I texted her, "Megan, I'd like to have lunch this week, just the two of us. There's something important I need to talk to you about. My treat." Her response came nearly 3 hours later. "Pretty busy with work, but could do Wednesday at 12:30. That new place near your office will need to be back for a 2 p.m. call." Even in her brief message, I could feel the barriers she had erected, but at least she had agreed to meet. It was a start. As I prepared for bed that night, I rehearsed what I would say, how I would express my hurt, without accusation, how I would ask for what I needed in our relationship going forward. I felt a mix of dread and hope. Dread about confronting such painful topics, but hope that honest communication might begin to heal the growing rift between us. What I didn't realize then was that our lunch would only deepen my understanding of how much things had changed, and that a far more revealing interaction was yet to come. I arrived at Café Laurent 15 minutes early on Wednesday, my stomach in knots. I had chosen a table in a quiet corner, hoping the privacy would facilitate the difficult conversation ahead. I wore the blue blouse Megan had given me for Christmas 2 years ago, a small gesture that I hoped might remind her of happier times between us. Megan arrived 20 minutes late, breezing in with a distracted air, her attention divided between our meeting and the smartphone she clutched like a lifeline. She air-kissed my cheek before sliding into her seat, already apologizing for her tardiness. "Sorry I'm late, Mum. Absolute chaos at work today. The Anderson project is completely off the rails, and Aaron's mother called twice about wedding venue options." She glanced at her phone again as it buzzed with an incoming message. "It's fine," I said, though it wasn't. The old Megan would never have kept me waiting without at least sending a text. "I'm just glad we could make this happen." A server approached and we ordered a Caesar salad for Megan, dressing on the side, no croutons, and a turkey club for me. As he walked away, I took a deep breath and decided to dive straight in. "Megan, I wanted to talk to you about something that's been bothering me." I began, my rehearsed speech evaporating under the pressure of the moment. "When I called last week about the engagement dinner and found out it had already happened, that you didn't include me, it really hurt." Megan's expression flickered between surprise and discomfort. She put her phone down but kept her hand protectively over it. "Mum, It wasn't a big deal, she said, dismissing my concern with a wave of her hand. It was just a small dinner that Aaron's parents put together at the last minute, very informal. But it was your engagement celebration, I persisted, and I'm your mother. Your only parent. Megan sighed, a sound of impatience rather than contrition. It was Aaron's parents who organised it. They made the guest list. It was mostly their friends anyway, people Aaron needed to connect with for work. And you couldn't have suggested including me? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Honestly, Mum, I didn't think you'd enjoy it. Those people, they're different. Very proper. Old money. I thought you wouldn't fit in with that crowd. The words landed like a slap. I wouldn't fit in. The subtext was clear. I was an embarrassment, a liability in her new social circle. The mother, who had worked double shifts to put braces on her teeth, was now someone to be hidden away, a reminder of humble beginnings, best forgotten. I see, I said quietly, blinking back tears. And did it not occur to you that being excluded from my only daughter's engagement celebration might be painful for me? Megan had the grace to look slightly ashamed, but her response lacked genuine remorse. I didn't think it would be such a big deal to you. It's not like it was the wedding or anything. There will be plenty of other events you can come to. Will there? I wondered silently. Or will those also be deemed inappropriate for someone who doesn't fit in with your new circle? Our food arrived, creating a momentary diversion. Megan immediately began rearranging her salad, separating ingredients with the precision of a surgeon. I noticed her engagement ring catching the light, a diamond so large it seemed to weigh down her slender finger. A ring chosen to impress, to announce membership in a world where bigger was always better. I tried a different approach. Megan, I miss you. We used to be so close, and lately I feel like you're drifting away. Is there something I've done that's bothering you? She looked up from her meticulous food preparation, momentarily surprised. No, Mum, you haven't done anything wrong. I've just been incredibly busy with work and wedding planning. Aaron's mother has very specific ideas about how everything should be done, and it's important to him that she's happy with the arrangements. And what about what's important to you? I asked. What about the things we always talked about for your wedding? The garden ceremony, the personal vows, the meaningful touches that would make it uniquely yours. Megan's expression hardened slightly. Those were childish fantasies. This is real life. Aaron has connections through his family that are opening doors for both of us. His parents are introducing us to people who can help our careers. Sometimes that means making compromises. Compromises like excluding your mother from your life. The words escaped before I could temper them. Don't be dramatic, Mum, she said, checking her phone again. You're not being excluded from my life. You're sitting right here, aren't you? The conversation continued in this vein. My attempts at meaningful connection deflected by Megan's practiced evasions. She offered surface-level updates about wedding plans, but shared no genuine emotions or vulnerabilities. When I tried to express how her recent behaviour had affected me, she dismissed my feelings as oversensitivity or misunderstanding. By the time we finished our barely touched meals, it was clear that lunch had resolved nothing. The gulf between us remained perhaps even widened by the realization that Megan wasn't merely too busy to prioritize our relationship. She was actively choosing to distance herself from me and what I represented. As we prepared to leave, Megan glanced at her watch and announced she needed to get back for her conference call. She gathered her designer handbag and stood. "This was nice, Mum," she said, as if we had just shared a pleasant catch-up rather than a failed attempt at addressing serious issues. "We should do it again soon," I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As she turned to leave, she paused and added almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and Aaron and I are thinking about a June wedding next year. Save the date." Save the date. For my own daughter's wedding, as if I were a casual acquaintance who might otherwise make other plans. I watched her walk away, her confident stride carrying her back to a world where I was increasingly unwelcome. The lunch had left me with more questions than answers and a deepening sense that the daughter I had raised was slipping away, replaced by someone I barely recognized. What I didn't know then was that our next significant interaction would come sooner than expected and would reveal even more about how fundamentally our relationship had changed. Exactly 7 days after our uncomfortable lunch, my phone rang just as I was preparing dinner. Seeing Megan's name on the caller ID sent a conflicting surge of hope and anxiety through me. Perhaps she had reflected on our conversation and wanted to make amends. Mum, her voice was high-pitched, tense, in a way I hadn't heard since her college finals week. I need your help. What's wrong? I asked, immediately concerned despite our recent tension. Are you okay? Not really, she said, the words coming in a rush. We put down deposits for the wedding venues today, the church and the country club reception, and my card was declined. It's so embarrassing. Aaron had to step away to take a call, and I'm sitting here with the event coordinator who's waiting for payment. My heart sank as I began to understand where this conversation was heading. That's strange. Did you call the credit card company? Yes, Megan replied impatiently. They said I'm over my limit. I didn't realize the deposits would be so large. Aaron's parents are insisting on St. Elizabeth's for the ceremony. It's where they got married, and the Lakeview Country Club for the reception. They're both incredibly exclusive and expensive. I remained silent, waiting for what I knew was coming next. The card didn't go through. Did you forget to pay the bill? She asked, her tone suggesting this was somehow my fault, though I had nothing to do with her credit card. The question hung in the air between us. In that moment, everything crystallized with painful clarity. This call wasn't about reconnecting or addressing the hurt feelings from our lunch discussion. It was transactional. She needed something from me, and our relationship had become a matter of utility rather than love. I need you to transfer some money to my account, she continued when I didn't immediately respond, just until I can get this sorted out. The deposits are $15,000 total. $15,000. The amount struck me like a physical blow. It represented months of careful saving, a significant portion of the money I had set aside for emergencies and eventually retirement. That's a lot of money, Megan, I said carefully. I know it's a lot, she conceded, but this is my wedding, Mum. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Aaron's parents are covering the rehearsal dinner and the honeymoon, which are costing them a fortune. The least we can do is handle the main event properly. The least we can do. I noticed how she included me in the financial responsibility, but had excluded me from the engagement celebration and apparently the venue selection process. Were you planning to consult me about any of these decisions? I asked, trying to keep accusation from my voice. I didn't even know you had selected venues. There hasn't been time, she said dismissively. Everything is moving so quickly. The best places book up a year in advance. We had to jump on these openings. Will I be included in other aspects of the planning? I asked the question that had been burning inside me since our lunch. Dress shopping, for instance. Of course, Megan replied, but her tone lacked conviction. Although Judith has already arranged appointments at some exclusive boutiques in New York, she knows the owners personally. Of course she does, I thought bitterly. Judith Mills seemed to have personal connections with everyone who mattered in Megan and Aaron's world. So about the transfer, Megan prompted, bringing the conversation back to its purpose. I really need this handled today. I found myself at a crossroads. For my entire adult life, I had given Megan everything I possibly could, financially, emotionally, practically. I had never expected gratitude or repayment, only love and basic respect. But now, being asked to provide substantial financial support while being systematically excluded from meaningful participation in her life felt different. It felt wrong. I'll need to think about it, I heard myself say, surprising us both. Think about it, Megan repeated incredulously. Mum, I'm sitting here with the event coordinator. This is mortifying. I need the money now. I understand it's an uncomfortable situation, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. But $15,000 is a significant amount for me. I need to review my finances and consider what I can realistically provide. I can't believe you're doing this, Megan said, her voice rising. After everything we've been through together, you're going to leave me hanging over money for my wedding. The accusation stung, but something inside me had shifted. I thought of the engagement dinner I hadn't been invited to, the casual dismissal of my feelings at lunch, the comment about me not fitting in with her new circle. I'm not leaving you hanging, Megan, I said quietly. I'm asking for time to consider a major financial decision, and I'm asking to be treated with the respect I deserve as your mother. Call the coordinator back tomorrow. I'll let you know my decision then. I ended the call before she could respond, my hands shaking but my resolve surprisingly firm. For the first time in our relationship, I had refused to immediately fulfill one of Megan's requests. It felt terrifying and oddly liberating all at once. That evening, I called Diana and my brother James, explaining the situation and seeking their perspectives. Both conversations helped clarify what I had been feeling, but struggling to articulate that a pattern had developed where I was taken for granted, valued for what I could provide rather than who I was. You've been a wonderful mother, James said firmly, but part of being a good parent is teaching your children about healthy relationships. And that includes mutual respect. You're not a bank account or a convenience Phyllis. You're a person deserving of consideration and inclusion. His words resonated deeply, sparking a process of reflection that would continue through a sleepless night and into the following day. By the time evening arrived, I had reached a decision that felt both terrifying and necessary. I picked up my phone and called my daughter back, ready to take a stand that would either begin healing our relationship or reveal that it might be broken beyond repair. The decision I made that night was perhaps the hardest of my life. After years of putting Megan's needs before my own, of saying yes when I wanted to say no, of swallowing hurt rather than causing conflict, I chose to prioritize my self-respect and the long-term health of our relationship over temporary peace. I spent the morning after Megan's call in deep reflection, journaling my thoughts and feelings in a way I hadn't done since the painful days following her father's departure. I realized that I had been so afraid of losing her love that I had allowed myself to be diminished in her life, accepting scraps of attention and affection when I deserved a full place at the table. My brother James's words echoed in my mind. Love without respect isn't really love at all, Phyllis. It's just habit or obligation. By afternoon, I had reached clarity. I would help Megan financially. I did want to contribute to her wedding, but my support would come with conditions about my involvement and her treatment of me. It wasn't about punishing her or asserting control. It was about establishing boundaries that would allow for a healthier relationship going forward. At 6 o'clock, I took a deep breath and called her. She answered immediately, her voice clipped and businesslike. Mum, I was about to call you. The venue coordinator needs an answer by end of day. Have you decided? No greeting, no inquiry about my day or my feelings, just straight to the transaction at hand. The pattern was so clear now that I wondered how I had missed it for so long. Yes, I've decided, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. But before I tell you my decision, I need to say something important. Can it wait? I'm on a deadline here. The impatience in her tone strengthened my resolve. No, it can't wait. This is about our relationship, Megan, and it matters more than any deadline. I paused, gathering my thoughts. When you called yesterday and asked why your card didn't go through, asking if I forgot to pay the bill, I realized something important. Mum, I really don't have time for... Please listen. I interrupted gently but firmly. I realized that somewhere along the way our relationship has become unbalanced. You expect me to provide financial support for a wedding I've had no part in planning. You excluded me from your engagement dinner because I wouldn't fit in with Aaron's family and friends. You've made me feel like an outsider in your life, someone to be tolerated rather than valued. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then defensively, "That's not fair. I've been incredibly busy with work and wedding planning." "I understand being busy, Megan. What I don't understand is being excluded and then expected to write checks." "The card didn't go through." "Did you forget to pay the bill?" I echoed her question from yesterday. "No, I didn't forget. I chose not to." The words hung in the air between us, powerful in their simplicity and honesty. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "It means that I love you more than anything in this world, but I can't continue to support you financially while being pushed to the margins of your life. I want to help with your wedding. I want to be part of this important chapter, but that means really being included in the planning, in the decisions, in the celebrations." "So you're, what, holding money over my head to get your way?" Her tone sharpened again. "No, I'm setting a boundary about how I deserve to be treated," I corrected gently. "I raised you to be independent and strong, Megan. I'm proud of the successful woman you've become, but somewhere along the way, you've forgotten that relationships require mutual respect and consideration." There was a long pause before she spoke again, her voice wavering slightly. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything right now," I told her. "Just think about what I've said. Think about the kind of relationship you want us to have moving forward. If Aaron's family's approval means more to you than my presence in your life, that's a choice you're entitled to make. But I'm also entitled to make choices about how I invest my time, energy, and yes, my money." "This isn't like you, Mum," she said, sounding genuinely confused. "You've always been there for me, no matter what." "I'm still here for you," I assured her. "But being there for you doesn't mean accepting being treated as an afterthought. I deserve better than that, and honestly, you deserve better too. The relationship we've been slipping into isn't good for either of us." Another silence fell, this one less tense than before. I could almost hear her processing my words, perhaps seeing our recent interactions through a new lens. "What about the venue deposits?" she finally asked, her voice uncertain. "I'll help with them," I said, "but I'd like us to meet this weekend and talk about the wedding plans together. Your vision, the budget, my role in the process. Real conversation, not just you informing me of decisions after they've been made." "Okay," she agreed, sounding subdued. "Saturday morning we could meet for breakfast." "I'd like that very much," I said, feeling a cautious optimism bloom inside me. We said goodbye, and I sat for a long time afterward processing what had just happened. For the first time in years, possibly since Megan was a teenager, I had asserted my own needs in our relationship rather than sublimating them to hers. It felt both terrifying and exhilarating. The next few weeks were not easy. Our breakfast meeting revealed just how deeply Megan had been influenced by Aaron's family's expectations and social aspirations. She admitted reluctantly at first, and then with increasing honesty, that she had been trying to prove herself worthy of entry into their world, even at the cost of her relationship with me. "I guess I started seeing you through their eyes," she confessed over pancakes at our old favourite diner. "And then I felt guilty about it, which made it harder to face you, so I pulled away more. And I let you," I acknowledged, "because I was afraid of losing you completely." That conversation marked the beginning of a difficult but necessary realignment of our relationship. There were tense moments and tearful ones, wounded pride and painful admissions on both sides. Megan's initial resentment at what she perceived as my ultimatum gradually gave way to recognition of how her behaviour had hurt me. Aaron, to his credit, seemed to gain new respect for me after I stood my ground. During a somewhat awkward dinner where he witnessed Megan and me discussing wedding details as equal partners, he remarked, "I see where Megan gets her backbone." The wedding planning became a collaborative process with compromises on all sides. I respected the importance of accommodating Aaron's family traditions, while Megan made space for elements that honoured our history together. I contributed financially in ways that felt appropriate and sustainable for me, and Judith Mills, perhaps sensing the shift in dynamics, became marginally more inclusive in her interactions with me. The most meaningful moment came 3 months after our confrontation, when Megan asked me to accompany her to her final dress fitting. As she stood before the mirror in a gown that beautifully balanced elegance and simplicity, our eyes met in the reflection. "You know," she said softly, "when I was little, I used to imagine you helping me get ready on my wedding day. I almost lost that because I got caught up in trying to be someone I'm not." "We both got a little lost," I admitted, "but we found our way back." She turned and hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it." In that moment, I knew that our relationship, while forever changed from the mother-daughter dynamic of her childhood, had emerged from this difficult period stronger and more authentic than before. We had both learned valuable lessons about boundaries, respect, and the courage it takes to speak difficult truths to those we love most deeply. The greatest gift wasn't the restored closeness between us, though I treasured that immensely. It was the knowledge that I had finally honoured my own worth, teaching my daughter through example that healthy love requires both giving and receiving both sacrifice and boundaries. And in doing so, I had given her something far more valuable than money or uncritical support, a model of self-respect she could carry into her own marriage and someday, perhaps her own journey as a mother. Has someone in your family ever excluded you or taken you for granted? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. This journey taught me that setting boundaries with loved ones isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of family challenges and personal growth. Remember, sometimes the strongest act of love is standing up for your own worth. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to honour both yourself and your relationships with the dignity they deserve.